Mead is the world's oldest fermented beverage. It is defined by the fact that honey is responsible for the majority of the fermentable sugars that goes into making the beverage. So, if you are making wine, you're gonna have wine grapes that you ferment and make wine. If you're gonna have a cider, you're gonna ferment apples and make a cider. If you're making a beer, you're gonna have cereal grains, and then you go through this process of converting the sugars and boiling them with hops. And there are so many other ways that you can make mead, wine, cider, beer. Distilled spirits would be when you make any of those things and then distill it. So if you distill beer, kind of turns into whiskey, depending on what kind of whiskey you're talking about. If you distill wine, it turns into grappa or aguardiente or brandy if you barrel age it. So distilling is a whole nother process that happens after fermentation. So when we make mead, we are fermenting honey. And what we're going to do is reverse the process that bees go through to make honey. So this is kind of crazy to talk about the birds and the bees, but when bees go out to find what will become food for the beehive, for their colony, they're gonna go find a flower, they're going to drink the nectar. That nectar goes into their honey sac, which is this separate organ that bees have, unique from a lot of other animals. And there are enzymes in that honey sac that will begin to convert that nectar into what we know as honey. They return to the hive, they regurgitate that nectar that's already starting to change into honey into the honeycomb, and the bees know that they have to line up and flap their wings and dry out the honey so that the moisture content is below 18%, or the bees will be making mead themselves because there's invisible, microscopic wild yeast and bacteria all around us, living on us. It's everywhere. And that would potentially turn that nectar, that honey, if the moisture content was too high, into mead itself. And there are cases in nature of when that's even happened. So by reversing that process, by adding water back into what the bees dried out, we can make a traditional mead. So traditional mead is honey, water, and yeast. And it can be dry, semi-sweet, or sweet. It can be made from any type of honey that you can imagine. And honey can be just as unique as any wine grape, any grain, any hops, any barrel that we choose. So selecting the type of honey that the beekeeper is able to declare as a varietal, or if it's not a varietal, meaning the bees were using other floral sources, or they blended the honeys, then we're gonna have a wildflower honey that we use. So that's a traditional mead. However, we can ferment with, or add in at the end of fermentation, or blend with, or rotate on through a hop back. Any legal fruit, herb, or spice, we can barrel age in any barrel you can think of. Right here, this is Blueberry Hex, one of our favorite meads, a core mead in the Superstition lineup, and it's a great example and expression of Arizona honey, wildflower honey in this case. We add blueberry juice towards the end of fermentation so we retain the color, the flavor, and the aroma. And there's no doubt that this is a blueberry mead. As soon as you look at it, as soon as you smell it, and when you taste it, I can't help but smile. It is so delicious. It's semi-sweet, it's balanced, it's complex. I get notes of, like, there's no wood in here, but I can taste the flavor that I get from medium toast oak that you can say it's my imagination, but I can detect it in this. I can get vanilla that's working on, I know this because I've had the honey and I've had the blueberry juice, and when you put those together, you're not creating a vanilla bean, right? But there's this vanilla flavor that is coming out of those ingredients working together, because from a certain perspective, everything in life comes down to very complex, sometimes very small, chemical compounds, and when they work together and are combined, you can smell them, you can taste them, you can see them, and through some proprietary methods and some other just common ways of fermenting, we're able to create so many amazing meads in a style because of how we do things, the temperature that we choose to ferment at, and the yeast that we choose, and the fruit that we source, and the honey we source. We have created a very unique style at Superstition that is recognizable across a vast array of what we do. But the most important thing to know about mead besides the fact that it comes from honey, is that it is so diverse and that honey goes with absolutely everything. Think about milk and honey barbecue, honey nut Cheerios. I mean, honey goes with every single, it's the only thing I've ever encountered that you can actually use to pair with any other flavor. Honey and chocolate, honey and vanilla. I mean, it goes on and on and on. That's why mead is so amazing, and we are only limited by the days in the week on the flavors that we're able to create and share with the world. And I think that's what mead is, and that's why I love it.